Hi everybody, I'm Jared Labuskachny and welcome to Zulu Alpha Firearms channel. So some of you might have already seen on our YouTube channel that we did a review on the Beretta M9-A3, a comprehensive review about that particular firearm. Now in that particular review we mentioned that the Beretta M9-A3 actually already comes standard with a threaded barrel. But at the time we did not have a suppressor or silencer that we could actually shoot it with. And now we actually do. So I thought today what we'll do is we'll shoot it and give you a little bit of insight about suppressors and silencers. Otherwise the episode would be about 1 minute of me shooting the Beretta. And tell you a little bit about them, what they're good for, things to look out for if you're interested in actually buying a suppressor for whatever firearm you've got. And then we'll shoot it suppressed, non-suppressed, and you can actually hear the difference. So many of us think, when we think about suppressors, we think about people like James Bond, the SAS, John Wick, Austin Powers.
Gotcha! Ow! You shot me, you a-hole!
Johnny English.
I have to warn you that I've been trained to resist this kind of thing. You swine!
All those kind of superheroes who use suppressors, or we think about hitmen who use them for their own business. And of course that, is part of what they're used for. But nowadays, of course, these things are freely available to people in South Africa. In terms of our law, there's no regulations in South Africa controlling suppressors or silencers. So you can walk into a gun shop, buy one, walk out, you don't even have to have a gun, there's no paperwork. Now, ironically, this is unlike the United States, where it's only legal in 42 of the 50 states in the US, and the amount of paperwork you have to go through to actually buy a suppressor is phenomenal. It's kind of like the amount of paperwork and time that we have to go through here just to buy a firearm if you want to buy a suppressor in the United States, which is really weird. So the guns are quite relatively freely accessible and quick to purchase. But suppressors are not. So we're quite lucky in that sense in South Africa. Very straightforward to actually buy. And most gun shops nowadays will be selling them, and they seem to be quite widely used for hunting, for example, in South Africa. But we're going to get a little bit more into that in a moment. So how long have these things been around? Well, it seems like in about early 1900s, 1902, 1908, Hiram Maxim, who was the son of the guy who actually invented the first sort of fully functional machine gun, actually patented it in the United States, and he called it a silencer. So definitely you can use the term silencer and suppressor pretty much interchangeably, although I think most people nowadays in the sort of firearms world are talking about suppressors as opposed to silencers, but really it's kind of the same thing. Like I said, so legally you can hunt with it in South Africa. There's no restrictions on owning it. I don't even think it's mentioned in the Firearms Control Act. You don't have to have a firearm to even own one. You can carry it for self-defense if you really want to, although it's a very awkward thing to carry with this extended sort of thing sticking off the end of the barrel. So, right, so what are the actual advantages of having a silencer? Well, it kind of makes your pistol polite by lowering the sound. And we're going to get into it just now, how it actually does that, the lowering of the sound. Other advantage, obviously is extra weight on the end of your barrel. I mean, if you suddenly put on, not that it weighs a lot, but if you do put on this to the end, it does add to the weight. So you're less sort of recoil, muzzle flip, which means follow-up shots could be faster and more accurate. It does slightly increase the velocity, although this is not a barrel. The projectile is not touching anything inside of this. If it is, there's a big problem because it's going to be damaging something on the inside. So it does slightly increase the velocity because the gases are pushing behind the bullet, the projectile, for longer. How much significantly does it increase the velocity? I don't think it's really worth getting too excited about. So those are some of the advantages. So which guns does it actually work well for? Well, the .22 caliber seems to be works nicely with a suppressor. Glock 6 1911s work very nicely with suppressors. The Beretta 92.
Give me your gun. Yes, I thought so. This damn Beretta again. I've told you about this before. You tell him. For the last time.
It's nice and light. In a lady's handbag.
This particular one, the M9-A3, works very well because it already does have the threaded barrel, but also it does not have a tilting barrel, and we'll get into that a little bit more, why that's better for shooting a gun with a suppressor on it. But ultimately, the surest way to know if your suppressor is going to work with your gun is to go to the range and try it out. So how does a suppressor actually work? And for those of you that haven't read up about this or looked at YouTube videos, essentially when the gun goes off, there's one loud bang, but actually what you've got is two separate bangs. They just sound as if they're happening simultaneously. So the first one is really the primer igniting the propellant, which causes the propellant to burn, and of course that makes the gas expand, which is the bang, and forces the projectile down the barrel. So that's bang number one that we kind of all associate the noise of a gun with. But now the second bang, which I said is pretty much simultaneous, that we don't hear it as a second one, is actually the sound of the bullet breaking the speed of sound. In other words, going supersonic. And that's that crack. So if you don't deal with both, you're not going to have a quiet gun. So essentially what the suppressor does is it takes care of the first bang, the bang from the propellant as it ignites. But if you don't have subsonic rounds, what's going to happen is you're still going to get the supersonic bang when it breaks the sound barrier. So that's what you need to still take care of. So how do we do that? Now, most 9mm, if we're just going to speak about 9mm ammunition, most 9mm ammunition that you buy, the 115 grains, the 124 grains at a gun shop, will be supersonic. In other words, it will have that crack going through the barrier of sound. So what you need to do, actually, if you really want your gun to be as sound as possible, is you need to buy subsonic rounds, which most gun shops would probably have. It's not perhaps the most frequent ammunition line around, but usually you can get at pretty much the majority of gun shops. The other thing you could do, however, is if you have someone that reloads, is you can ask them to make it for you. So really, as any normal reloader when they're reloading stuff, but what you would do is you'd buy a 147 grain bullet point if you're dealing with 9mm, because it's heavier, and then you just have to check your loads in terms of the guidelines to make it that you want the bullet going less than 110 foot per second, which is for those of us in meters, it's like 343 meters per second. And usually what you'd find is the subsonic stuff is probably going at around 800, 900 foot per second. And if you get that right, you will eliminate also the supersonic crack, and you'll have pretty much the softest gun you can get. Of course, what you can still do is the remaining sound that you'll have is obviously the doppy hitting the floor, that tingle, and you'll have that sound of the action working. So if you look, for example, at World War II, they had a thing called a well rod, which was a design for sort of assassinations for the French resistance and other people. And that actually had a captive bolt. It didn't automatically cycle. And without that, and without the doppy popping out, you're actually going to have an incredibly quiet, almost like Hollywood quiet. So that's kind of how this works. How do these things attach? And basically, essentially, if you're looking at suppressors, you've got about three options. You get firstly the integral suppressor, where the barrel and the suppressor are kind of fixed as one. You don't really take them apart. Then you get what they call the quick detach or QD mounts, which essentially is you put it on the gun and you twist it once, and it has like a spring action that keeps it locked in place. That's going to be more for your rifles and your pistol caliber carbines. For your pistols, though, you're probably going to find mostly it's going to be the screw-on threaded barrel, and there's a bit of a reason for that. And of course, now I'm going to struggle with this thing. There you go. So you screw it on, the O-ring helps perhaps keep it in place, and there you go. And again, for pistols, that's going to be, and partly because of the action of the gun, especially if you've got the Browning styles like Glocks and other firearms, where the barrel tilts when it cycles, and that's a bit of a problem for most pistols, and that's why you have to have a pistol suppressor and not another type of suppressor. Essentially what happens is when it cycles, you'll see if I pull the front here, you can see it actually moves. There's that space to move, and what that allows is when the gun goes off, it allows the barrel to tilt and still cycle, because obviously if you're dangling a weight at the end of a tilting barrel, it can cause it not to cycle properly and malfunction. So that's why pistol suppressors tend to have this movement, where pistol caliber carbines and rifles, which have a fixed barrel, do not have this. In fact, if you shoot something like this on a rifle or a pistol caliber carbine where the barrel is not one that moves, you're going to have this thing jackhammering. So just again, when you purchase, make sure you're purchasing the right thing for your purposes. So this little device here, this little springy bit, is called a booster or a Nielsen device, which, as I said, allows a tilting barrel to work quite effectively and not have malfunctions when you shoot with a suppressor. All right, so what else do you need to keep in mind? Of course, sights, because as you can see already, the sight line here is going to be a bit hampered. I don't necessarily think you have to have it always over the actual suppressor, because if you're still able to line your sights up on the target that you're looking at, it doesn't necessarily have to be looking over the barrel. Again, you're placing the sight over the target that you're looking at. But you can get extended sights. This does have extended sights, the M9-A3, which is handy, but things like Glocks are very good at getting sights that you can put on aftermarket to give you a better view over the barrel, over the suppressor. So that's something to just check out though, and take into account when you're buying one. Check it out, don't just buy it, put it on your gun and check how it's going to work. So I think it is now time for us to actually shoot this. So like I said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to first shoot about 5 rounds normal ammunition without the suppressor. So again, you can just adjust your ears to the sound. And then what we're going to do is we'll put the suppressor on and fire 5 normal rounds again, the normal supersonic rounds. And you can hear how this does or doesn't muffle the sound. And then the final about 3 rounds that we're going to use will be the subsonics with the suppressor. And you can literally see the difference between the 3 of them. So again, this has been cleared before we started and we're good to go. We will also have a decibel meter. Now, it's not a professional one, but I have a deal with you. If you pretend it is a professional sound meter, I'll pretend that you actually know what a decibel is and how loud it is. All right, so we've got our eyes and ears on. Gun is loaded, 5 rounds, normal rounds. I think it's 115 grain is the rounds that they have at the range here. And we're just going to shoot these for, as we can hear the comparison as we put on the suppressor and then the suppressor with the subsonics. So this is just to give you a sound test, not a comment on my shooting. Okay, and that's looking at 119 decibels according to my little meter. So gun is clear, hammer down, safety. So now I'm going to put the suppressor on. All right, so this particular suppressor is an ATEC PMM6, specifically for 9mm. And I know these are pretty widely available in South Africa and quite highly regarded. It does come actually in 2 parts. So you screw on this, you can almost see the baffles that which capture the gas as they expand. And pretty simple process. You do want to keep these things clean, especially pistol ones. Right, so threading, putting it on is very, very easy. It takes literally a couple seconds to slide them on. And obviously make sure your gun is always safe before you put it on, like I did. Nice twist, and there you go. So now we're going to shoot normal ammunition. Same that I shot now before, a moment ago. And just to show you that putting normal bullets with a suppressor doesn't necessarily do too much. We'll have a check with the decibel count. All right, I never shot with a suppressor, so let's go. It does definitely add a significant amount of weight to the front of the barrel. All right, I'm going to go for the top right-hand side, and again, so the sights are slightly covered, but if you line it up with the target behind, so you can definitely hear a difference. That looked like it was 82. 99 decibels. A difference. I do actually like the weight. It does make it feel much more stable. 109. All right. So, is a definite sound difference, but this is not, like I said, the movie quietness. You can see actually here, without the Beretta, which doesn't have the tilting barrel, so it's quite a nice platform for this type of suppressor. Okay, now let's do the real fun. I'm not going to shoot too many rounds. I think I got about 3 that we're going to do subsonic. And this is the really cool stuff. So we're going to shoot the 3 subsonic, but what I want to do is put my faith in science and take off my ear protectors. All right, so subsonic rounds, there we go, 3 of them in, and I will shoot for the right-hand target, the left white circle. All right. Wow, 66, I think it said. Actually, because there's a metal pillar, I'm going to actually shoot again for the left-hand target for the head of the black target. That's definitely hearing safe. It's still quite loud, actually. So we're talking about between 60 and 80. So it's definitely hearing safe, definitely a lot softer, but again, it's sort of not the movie quiet. Now, I don't know exactly what subsonics these particular ones were, so one can always play around with, again, bullet weight, and powder. But I mean, it's quite weird to hear it hitting the target at the end, or the backstop, which is a sound you don't normally hear with sort of normal rounds. So fun and interesting. So why would I want one of these? So the downside, okay, of these obviously is it's not really practical to carry your firearm with this. Again, it is safe, unsafe. I mean, you're not going to get a holster that's going to work with this. So it's not really sort of a self-defense-y kind of thing. You don't really want to carry this around. They say, you know, wearing this, a handgun with a suppressor is kind of like playing catch with a cactus. Not much fun. So holster problems will be an issue. So if you're at home and you want this for self-defense, how are you going to really keep it with you? You know, if you're mowing the lawn, I mean, this is ridiculous. So in general, a few things. If you buy, for example, a suppressor that's made for a 45 caliber, you can put it on a smaller, like a 9mm. You might have not as great sound protection as you would if you had a 9mm suppressor. So you can go lower, but it won't necessarily have as much effect. Yeah, as I said, don't put a pistol suppressor on a rifle because of the fact that it's got that Nielsen device, the booster, which makes it move on a fixed barrel. That can cause it to actually jackhammer. You'd always want to check. Obviously, the bullet should not be touching anything as it passes through the suppressor. If it does, it's called a baffle strike, and you'll find that there will probably be some kind of bulging. That is bad. You do not want to use it if that's happened or happening. They do get hot. This one is not too bad. We've fired, I think, 8 rounds through it. So, but you do want to check, because it's a thread, that it is still tight at the end of your shooting. You can actually increase the silence effect. So some people put like a teaspoon of water, specifically for that first round. A teaspoon of water in it, and that actually helps suppress it because that vaporizes and creates steam. Of course, you have a lot of blowback of water and steam, which is a bit messy, but it can apparently drop it as much as 20 decibels. It's a long wear item, so this should actually outlast your barrel. You do want to keep them clean. Again, pistol ones do tend to foul a lot more apparently than, say, rifle ones. So they give a reasonable accuracy, and like I said, in the hunting industry, apparently in South Africa, a lot of farms are actually insisting that you do use a silencer or a suppressor when you go hunting. So the one question which some people sometimes say is, you know, home defense. And let me tell you what my thoughts on there, and again, it's my thoughts. You really don't have to listen to a word I say. The problem with this in terms of home defense is, let me just take that out, is you obviously have this much longer, it's not a barrel, but you have this much extension to your firearm. So if you are in your home going around a corner, this is going to stick out a lot sooner than you will if you're going around a corner in your house checking on something that's going there. So of course, if someone grabs this, you can really kiss your gun goodbye. This leverage, they will play with you and you will not be able to get it on target while they're kicking, hitting, punching, stabbing you with their other hand. And you're going to be desperately holding onto your firearm. Now, I know from own experience, once when I got into a fight with a suspect, which is with a normal gun, my Beretta M9-A3, once that guy grabs the front, man, keeping hold of your gun, big problem. Now you add on extra leverage, bigger problem. So for me, that will be an issue in a home defense scenario, going around your house with this type of length of barrel. The second thing is, of course, it's quiet. You don't have that loud, intimidating bang. And definitely, if I'm going to end up shooting in my house, I want people to be scared, intimidated, and his suspect buddies that are somewhere else in the house to know that has now hit the fan. And that's a good way, obviously, to get people out. You've got that noise, bang, intimidation, which would then hopefully scare the hell out of someone and make them realize it's time to leave your house. And you don't have that with a suppressor, because it can be very, very quiet. Like I said, especially if there's more than one suspect in the house, you want them to know that it's time to go, which is why police, when they do an arrest, they do it with lots of noise, flash bangs, dominate the scenario. You're not dominating with a little gun, well, not little gun, but a gun that doesn't make a lot of noise. So that's one thing to keep in mind from a self-defense point of view. The second thing, like I said, it's perfectly legal in South Africa to own these, to carry them, to use them for self-defense. But the problem really is, we know SAPS members don't always understand firearms law. How many times have you heard where they say, you're not allowed to have hollow points, or you must carry your competency with you when you carry your firearm, including your license, or you're not allowed to carry your Section 16 sports license for self-defense. They don't know the law. So my fear would be, you've shot someone or two people in your house who were there illegally threatening and endangering your life. So it's a legal shoot in that regard. Now SAPS comes to the scene, the uniform guys. He sees this. He's going to think, does he even know that these are legal in South Africa? That's the first question. And then he's might think, well, hey, looks like you were hunting these guys in your house. I wouldn't want to go through that. So personally, that's another reason why, from a self-defense point of view, to be honest with you, before I call the cops, if I happen to use my suppressor to shoot someone, you might want to take certain steps before your phone call. And that's not illegal, because this is not illegal. But again, I don't want to be arrested on a Friday night or a Saturday night and only appear in court on a Monday, because that's how those things work for appearances. Not worth the hassle. So you really want to be careful in that regard. So that's my issues about self-defense. So again, why would you want one of these? The novelty aspect. You can't use it for sports. You can use them for hunting, like I said, but normal pistol sports, you can't use it. It's fun. It's a hell of a lot of fun. It's cool. Novelty. If you're a hitman, of course, you'd probably want one of these things. Maybe if you want to farm and you wanted to put down animals and you don't want to scare the other animals, that could be one reason. But as I said, not for sports. But remember, always do your homework. Read the manual. Look up, if you're interested in suppressors, look up and watch more videos than the ones I'm obviously showing you here. Have that inquiry in mind. And I hope this has been interesting and insightful for you, and just showing you a few things about suppressors that you didn't know before, and how the Beretta, this particular Beretta, works with a suppressor. Just want to give a shout out though to Michael Skoltz, who on a very, very busy Saturday when I was here at TacticalHQ with my COVID mask on, he says, hey, don't I know you? And I said, maybe. And he said, you're the guy that does the Zulu Alpha Firearms channel videos. So very observant. So shout out to Michael Skoltz. Please keep on watching. Please keep on liking the show. And to all of you out there, if you like what we're doing here, you like the style of the way we do things, do like our videos, and please, more importantly, subscribe to the channel. That again gives us reason to exist and continue if we know people actually like what we're doing. We're not firearms experts. We're just having firearms fun. So again, that's it. I'm Gerard Labuschagne for Zulu Alpha Firearms channel. Be safe, be legal, and be responsible.